Hey there, REM-PCs. Welcome to Rules of Cool, where we interview very special guests, creators, game designers, and world builders. I'm your host, Rem, and today we're going to chat with Emerald Glitch's own Randy Alvarenga, who plays Fisher the Troll Decker. And then stay tuned, because up next at 5 p.m. PST is the next episode of Shadowrun's Sixth World, Emerald Glitch, and the Revenge of the Green Mansion. This week's giveaway is a PDF of Shadowrun's Sixth World Core Rulebook, Seattle Edition, from our wonderful sponsors at Catalyst Game Labs. Type hashtag REMPC in the chat for your free entry to win. For bonus entries, check out remalternus.com/nuyen and patreon.com/remalternus. Your support helps pay our cast and crew, so we greatly appreciate it. Now, time to get right into our conversation for this week. So stay tuned, REMPCs. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm here with my friend and co-Shadowrunner, Randy Alvarenga. Hey, Randy.
Hey, how's it going?
It's
nice
going
to be here.
Yeah, it's going well. It's good to have you. I get to hear all about all things Randy today, so I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm also excited to just have this chance to talk with you a bit more. We played a couple of games together now, but it'll be great to get to know a little bit about me, but me to learn a little bit about you too, because I'm sure I'll have questions.
You're the sweetest. I kind of want to start with just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your Randy elevator pitch?
Yeah, my Randy elevator pitch. Well, putting me on the spot like that? Well, no. So my name is Randy Alvarenga. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I'm half African-American and El Salvadoreño. So I grew up with in a family that spoke Spanish and English at home sometimes, and my Spanish sucks now. So that's just a fact. I speak Japanese. I was a professional actor, both here in the Seattle area where I am now, but also a few years ago, I returned from 7 years working professionally abroad in Tokyo, Japan. So yeah,
that's so stinking cool. So would you say your Japanese is better than your Spanish?
Oh, absolutely. I have the highest level of Japanese you can have.
That's super cool. So you're fluent.
I'm 100% fluent. The last show I did in Japan was Shakespeare in Japanese, which blew, I still can't believe that happened.
We need to geek out about Shakespeare sometime. I don't know if this is the best place for it, but folio technique. Have you been trained in folio technique?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Well, now I feel like we have to talk about it. We've lasted 30 seconds before the first tangent, right?
Right.
So, for those who don't know, Randy, why don't you explain what folio technique is?
Well, no. Why don't you start so I can make sure that we're on the same page? I don't want to get it wrong. I did study it, but I feel like you are definitely more the expert there, because most of my study of different techniques in theater were originally in college. So I studied a lot of different techniques a little bit. So I would not say I'm an expert at it by any means.
Well, I was very lucky. I got to study in Chicago under the folio Shakespeare teacher that teaches for Chicago Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And he's phenomenal. Kevin Long is life goals. But folio technique is when back in the day, when you would get the role, let's say that Randy, you're going to be cast as Romeo. And by the way, you go on tomorrow night. So they give you a scroll, which it has your role on it. And then all they give you is your lines and the 3 words before that are your cue lines for when you talk. So what ends up happening is you only learn your part in those cue lines. But all of the punctuation, like Shakespeare's not a dummy, right? But there's all these weird capitalizations, weird punctuation, weird spellings. Those are all your stage directions and all of your emotional direction and acting directions.
Okay, so yes, we are talking about the same thing. This did happen. And what I will say it did for me as an actor was made me listen more. Like I had to really, because you're not even getting the whole line of the person before, you're getting like the end of their line. So you're not only listening to what they're saying, but you have to know what is triggering your next piece. And for some reason, when I remember doing this in college, and it just made it more alive. Like I was like, like for some reason, it drove a very different performance than a lot of other things. Yeah.
It keeps you on your toes because your reactions and your emotional state is kind of all given to you right there in the text. You know, if you have a character that is higher class, nobility, and always speaks in verse. Olivia in 12th Night is a perfect example, where when she starts talking about Viola, like she loses her meter and she goes into prose.
Right.
And so like that is such an emotional reaction for her to forget herself and her manners because she's so in love that she's losing herself. I think that's so cool.
So I could 100% continue talking about Shakespeare all night, but I like you said, I don't think so. But what this did make me want to think about is how has your training as an actor, because we've both been trained as actors, how has that infused your way of playing tabletop RPG games?
That's a good question, and I want to ask you things. This is weird. I'm like, wait, what?
Sorry. Okay, I can answer that first. Sure.
Well, we can take turns, but you go ahead and go first. I want to hear about you.
So, for me, first tabletop RPG streaming acting. I didn't know that was a thing that I would enjoy or that I could do as an actor. And so when I first started doing it, I was really unsure how to bring, like, there's a certain amount of improv and those kinds of things that you practice in school that is really helpful. But I think what acting just in general has really brought to my gaming in that way is the ability to like be present and to be in the moment and to like live through that character and to like really hone in on what other people are saying and allow that to affect what I'm doing, what's happening. So like, for example, Curie and Fisher, they're not friends. Right? And Fisher is a lot. Yeah, Fisher's a lot. And that's true. But I wanted him to have like a reason that he's doing this thing, the Shadowrun thing. And he has his sort of idea of what that should be. And that may not be right, but that's sort of what he has. And he has to be able to not just live as himself, but be affected by and changed by everyone around him. And I think Curie, being the way that she is, allows him to do that in a very different way than I was initially anticipating as an actor. But you roll with the punches and you go.
Yeah. It's funny because for me, I've told the story of I told myself when I was like in college that I was a dork, not a geek. And two things I would never do is watch Star Trek or play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a hypocrite. But I fell in love with D&D, and like getting into the characters was a lot of fun, and exploring these different kind of fantasy tropes and stuff like that. But it was what got me to care about Shadowrun was I was in a D&D group, and one of the writers for Shadowrun was in our group. So when a campaign ended, he was like, hey, I want to run this cyberpunk fantasy game for you that takes place in our world 80 years in the future. And there's all these guns and cybernetics and stuff like that. And I'm like, that sounds stupid. But everyone else was like, don't be that way, play. And I was like, fine. But I was just wrapping a show, and I started going through character withdrawal. So I was like, I guess I'll care. And so when I started getting into the world and the character and stuff and the setting, I really fell in love with it. And actually that game was where I first played Curie. So because my GM, the writer, was like, hey, what about a mage? I'm like, fine. Well, what if the mage believes that all magic is actually just science that we don't understand? Fine. Like, and I'm so obsessed with my girl. Like, but I think like in terms of the acting perspective and stuff like that, the ability with Shadowrun for like missions to sit down at a table for 4 hours and just get into character. I've sat at tables before where I'm like, I've played Curie for missions and I'll sit down and be like, hi, everyone. I really want to apologize because I'm not going to be very nice. And that's not who I am as a person, but just wanted to put that out there up front. I like all of you. Now I'm going to be really mean to you. Like Fisher. So then like just being able to get into it and like really like feel and emote through it and react with the table and see what's going to happen and have that journey for Curie. That was a lot of fun. And that actually is what inspired Chicago Shadows that we're working on, which is a cyberpunk fantasy series that we're producing. But the cool thing is because of Gen Con TV and doing Emerald Glitch, I wanted to make a new character, but I was like, this gives us a chance to introduce Curie to an audience before Chicago Shadows comes out. So I'm going to do it, but it's like an alternate timeline for her than the story that we're telling, which is also really cool because she's starting in the exact same spot I started her with before. But now how are these people going to affect her and get her to open up or get her to change? And in what ways? Will it be better or will it be worse? And I think that's really cool to see like how others influence your character's life plot.
For sure.
And I think that's what acting does for me when it comes to role play.
I'd love to hear it.
So what's your history as a gamer? How did you first get into gaming?
Are we talking like just all gaming, like video games and everything? I've been playing video games since the moment I could get my hands on a grubby little controller or a PC. I probably had no idea what was going on. I think my mom had like an old Atari or something at our house that I would like spend hours on. And she should have known then that I was going to be a gamer, but for some reason it didn't hit her till I got a Game Boy. And I remember very clearly like walking around playing this Game Boy for like hours and my mom being like, go outside. And I'm like sneaking it outside, right? So I can play it out there. But I don't know. There's always been a part of me that has found gaming really not just relaxing. It's been helpful. So when I started school, I had a slight accent. So they put me in ESL, which is English as a second language. And even though my English wasn't that bad, it was just I had a slight accent, and
we've got to beat out your accent from you,
right? And I mean, if you want to know why I don't speak Spanish, it's because I felt very othered, like being in that class and like getting pulled out when everybody was doing cool stuff like music class. I was going to learn about English, which was boring. But one of the things that really helped with that was playing like RPG games. Like I remember. That's where I wanted to learn more about what was going on. Like I might not have understood all the vocabulary. I might have messed up some grammar stuff. And then I would like look it up and like, so that I could go back and talk to friends about it. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where my like reading comprehension skills really expanded. And I mean, I've just been playing games ever since. It's just what kinds of games has slowly evolved and become more and more over time.
That's awesome. My husband has English as a second language. His native language is French, and he said that English, like that role playing games, really helped him learn English as well. And now he's trying to convince me to do the other way and play in French with his friends to learn. But I tease him because they use English for so much of it. I'll hear him shout from the other room like "Je counterspell," and it's like, okay.
Yeah. When I was in Tokyo, one of the the first con I've ever been to in my entire life. I originally told Rim that I'd never been to one, but I kind of went to a small one in Tokyo for D&D. It was a D&D con, which D&D is not the most popular tabletop game in Japan. It's Call of Cthulhu. So this was like one tiny little room with like maybe 8 tables, like big tables though, of nerds playing games. And I played for the first time in Japanese, and it was really cool. Much like you, I was like, oh, there's a lot of like English loanwords that are in here, but it's also it's a different vocabulary. So like it definitely stretches what you know, and I think I would agree with your husband that I think it's a great way to learn a language, because like at the end of the day, if you're not excited by what you're doing, you're not going to like retain it very well. Mm-hmm. And for me, I love playing RPGs, so it's like tabletop RPGs included. So it really helped me to learn.
I see whose side you're on. So that's how you got into gaming.
Yeah.
Where did your passion for acting begin?
Oh, it was a gradual thing. I grew up pretty poor, so I wasn't able to like go to acting classes or anything like that. But I did have a friend. His name was Eric. He actually just passed away last year.
Oh.
But he shaped my life in a lot of ways, and one of those ways was theater. So we went to a boarding school, like a public charter boarding school in DC called Seed together. And I remember he got me to audition for The Wiz, and that was like he wanted to do The Wiz, and he didn't want to do it by himself. And he was always like the more outgoing of us. I'm more naturally more reserved. I'm really good at talking with like people one-on-one, not so much like in big groups. And so I've had a really hard time breaking out of that shell, and being friends with him, I could not do that. He like pushed me to do a lot of things. And I remember doing that show and really enjoying it. And then there was a community theater in DC called City at Peace that I joined. And it was another musical thing. And I was like, I kind of like this thing. Like, telling stories and pretending to be people, like I'm into this. And eventually I had written a lot before then, so when I got to high school, I eventually was able to get into the Duke Ellington School of the Performing Arts in DC, which changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to state. And the biggest one was I started doing playwriting as one of my courses, because I was a writing major and a voice minor. And because I thought for a long time I wanted to write musicals. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I was like, maybe I'm too shy to be an actor. I'm going to just create and be back here, right? And so I was writing this play, and for some reason, like, around junior, senior year, you get like senioritis and you're like, I don't want to do anything. So I joined this playwriting course, hated it. That is what I got into the school to do, right? Like, I should be really excited. But for some reason, in the beginning of the year, I hated it, didn't want to do it, wrote this really bad play, really bad. And part of right before spring break, we were told, your play is going to be entered in this playwriting contest after spring break, so you have to have it done by then. And something right before spring break happened, we went to the acting department's class and watched seniors preparing their senior monologues. There's actually a famous actor now who was in that class. His name is Corey Hawkins. He was like in the Heights movie recently. But he was one of the actors in that class. There were some other really talented actors and actresses. And I remember this one woman got up, had a stool, she placed her stool down, sat, and did this monologue that changed my life. Everything around me sort of disappeared and dissolved. And all I could feel like was everything she was saying was directly to me. Like, I would like, whatever this scene was, it enraptured me so much that like I couldn't think of anything else after it. And I went home and I was like, this play is trash. I'm gonna rewrite all of it. And so over spring break, I didn't do anything else but sit at a computer, punching out this new version of this play. And then when we got back to school, I entered it in the play competition. Now, none of my other classmates knew I had done that. And I ended up winning that playwriting contest. And they had professional actors come in and perform the work I did.
Oh.
And I was like, I get it. That's the first time I saw like the power telling stories could have on people, on me. And then like the way that story that I wrote affected people in the audience afterwards. And they would like come up to me and say stuff. Made me go, I know I love this and I want to do it for the rest of my life. The question is how. And then I decided I needed to study it to get better at it. So I went to college and studied acting.
That's so cool. I love that story. And those little moments that you see that light, and you see, you know, for me, it was at a Ren fair when a little girl believed that I was an actual tree fairy. And she saw me I was in the final joust, and, you know, we all get in a fight and I get knocked out by the blacksmith, but at the end we all get together and we're all friends again and stuff like that. So it's all fine. But the next hour it was my turn to watch Fairyland. So I went there, and this little girl's sobbing and comes up and hugs my legs. And I look at her mom, and her mom's like, she saw you get hurt at the joust. And I'm like, well, I've never felt this good before. Yeah, I think this is what I want to do. So yeah, those moments that define and like change the course of your future are really, really brilliant. And it's really cool to hear your stories. I think we should do a streamed reading of your play at some point, personally.
Maybe. No. So that play is really personal.
Oh.
I wouldn't mind it. I would have to have a really awesome cast, because like it's near and dear to my heart. But it's also very, very deep and serious. So we'll talk about that and see if that's a possibility. But like,
cool.
Yeah.
Aw. Cool. So kind of putting these two together now. We talked about getting into role playing, getting into acting. So how did you begin live streaming for RPGs?
Well, in 2019, I had just finished a play in Japan, and I needed a break. I had a thing where I'd been there 7 years, and in my theater company for 5 of those. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm liking what I'm doing. I'm not loving it. I don't know if I'm in the right place right now. I want to go back to the States for a little bit. And so I got back to the States. I thought I was going to take a break from theater. I was like, I'm going to, just do a normal job for like a few months and see how that feels. And I instantly got to Seattle. And the first thing I did was get myself cast in a musical. So
you're a hypocrite too.
Yeah. But one of the things was before I had a job lined up, I was still looking around, and a friend of mine from college reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I'm putting together this show. Yeah, you're a like Afro-Latino actor, because we had played D&D together in college, and he asked me to be on this show called The Variants. It was a good friend of mine named Opti, who has been on your channel before, and yeah, me and him, he played the game that got me into D&D, which I would love to share because that's one of my favorite stories too.
Yeah.
But he invited me to do this live stream, and it was the first time that I had ever been like, oh, what's this? I had seen Critical Role by then, but I was like, I'm not that, so I don't know what this is gonna be, but let's have fun. And I loved it. It was great. I got to play this Central American like superhero, essentially. And I met Danny, and I met some other really cool people. But I was like, hey, I like this. Maybe I want to do more of this. And at the same time, a friend of mine from Japan had also moved back to America around the same time. And they were doing stuff. They had done stuff with Geek and Sundry when we were still in Japan. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to them and see how they got involved in that. And they were like, hey, actually, Geek and Sundry isn't a thing anymore. Or like it's not big now. So one of the other channels I'm working on, which was a Saving Throw Show. And so they asked me if I would be willing to come be on a show where we played like small indie games in front of the audience. Each week was sort of a different game. So it wasn't so much playing one character. It was like, hey, can you jump into all these different things and play these different systems? And they were all GM-less, which was great for me because I am terrified to be a GM. One day I want to, but I'm terrified to do it. And I don't know, that sort of kicked it off. It was sort of some luck, some sort of asking about it, and having the background in acting that people knew. So
cool. So what's the story that you wanted to share about Opti?
Oh, okay. So let me tell you. So Opti and his group of friends were all in graduate school at the time. All right. And the guy who's running the game, as the GM, Opti's just another player with me, but all puts the ad in our university bulletin board that's like, hey, looking for another player for D&D. I grew up in the hood. There ain't that much D&D going on. So I had heard about it like through something, and I was like, that's that weird game that people like throw dice and like wear spellcaster hats or something. I don't know what I thought, but I was like, this is gonna be weird. But at the bottom of it was free pizza. And as a college undergraduate, free pizza, I'm there. So I like I emailed the guy and was like, hey, I'd be interested in learning more about how to play in this game. I have no background in this, don't know what's going on. This was probably, I'm trying to remember what, I don't remember what edition it was. Because I think I bought some old books and then I bought some newer books and then later bought some even newer books. It was a lot. But in the very beginning, he was like, yeah, you can play. You don't really need a background. I hope you build a character. Played a ranger. I was a beast ranger because I like animals. And
my first character was a ranger too.
Yeah, it's a nice class for beginners. But that character had nothing going on. It was just a character sheet. I didn't have like goals. I didn't have like a backstory really. But I was in this great group of people who were all, and they were all like religion graduate students. So I was freaked. I was at this Texas Christian University. I was like, I'm playing D&D with like some religion graduate students. What is my life right now? And but it was super fun. Now at this table, Opti's character was a healer. He was a cleric. All right. And he wanted to be a pacifist cleric. He didn't want to fight people. He wanted to help and do more healing, helping other people. Okay. We also had another guy who was a murder hobo, to the biggest definition of being a murder hobo, to the point where Opti was like, this is at least how I understood it. He wasn't sure how that character would stay in that group with that guy. Right. So my understanding is, at some point, Opti says, I'm going to play a different character. I want to play a different character. And the GM and him talk, and they concoct this entire idea of what they're going to do to like let his other character leave and, come out. I think he wanted his character to die, like to get killed or something. But that's not what happened. What instead happened were the next 7-8 months us playing this campaign through a bit more. And every once in a while, there would be little notes that were being passed around the table, right? And then, and it was not often enough that you were like, hey, there's some shady stuff going on over here, but there was shady stuff going on. And we get to this big fight. We were playing in the world of Greyhawk, so we were fighting like a big bad evil Ayus because they were in Texas, and that's where in the Greyhawk world that is. So it's this big evil guy. He wants to come back, be reincarnated or something as the avatar of evil, or tabletop stuff. And we get there at this ritual where they're trying to summon him back to the world or something, and we stop the ritual. And there's a virgin girl on an altar, and the bad guys are dead and everything. And Opti's character, instead of doing what we normally would do, which is start greyhawking the area, right, like taking items, begins to slowly walk over to the altar. Okay? And my character sees this and is like, what? That's really odd. I knock an arrow because I didn't trust it. There was something about the way he said it, and I was like, I don't like this. And he goes, murders the girl, becomes the new avatar for Ayus, and becomes the big bad for the rest of our campaign. So this thing where we played for 7-8 months, I'm sitting here trusting this character, thinking that he's on our side. No, he was there the whole time to kill this girl and to make sure that Ayus was brought back into the world. And so now my character had been betrayed and had a goal in mind to what he wanted to do. And my whole goal for the rest of that campaign was to kill Davnin.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Opti came back as a much like a cooler character that actually fought. So it was a lot more fun for him, I think, as a player. But it was also just, that was the moment I was like, oh my God, these stories are a lot bigger. And we would play like every night, like once a week, every Sunday night. And I just remember never feeling like, have you ever felt like, hey, I don't really want to do this? Like going to even if you love something, sometimes it's hard to do it. This game was never like that. Every week,
so cool.
I was there and was all in. So yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. And Opti is a phenomenal storyteller. For those who don't know, Opti has been on previous shows with us before, and is the founder of Fraggy Unicorns Games, and also is a big popular live streamer or podcaster when it comes to Shadowrun. So he has the Neo-Anarchist podcast, which is phenomenal for lore for Shadowrun. Shadowrun Origins, I believe he's one of the producers of, and he plays in, and they rotate GMs out and stuff like that. He's done a lot of really great work for Shadowrun, in addition to writing for Shadowrun. So dreams, man. That's awesome, yeah. Randy. I love that story.
Mm-hmm. It is why I fell in love with D&D, hands down.
So what are some of your all-time favorite games to play, since you kind of got to play a lot of those little indie games, and you've done quite a wide variety now?
Yeah, I've done a lot now. So I really love Tin Candles. I just love everything about the way that game brings like just all the mechanics infuse the storytelling with so much more. Like I had the opportunity to play it in person with a couple of friends, and like actually burning like your cards and watching as the lights go out and someone moving the table and a light falling out. And everyone just got quiet, dead silent. We were like joking and laughing before that moment. And then
for those who don't know, next week is our one-shot show where Shadowrun takes a break and we play a one-shot of whatever RPG we feel like. Next week is 10 Candles.
So check it out. It's a cool game.
It's so good. It's super spooky.
It is very spooky. Most people will, according to the rules, you're not going to survive.
Yeah, the premise is you will die. It's just the question is how.
Yeah. And everyone has the agency of affecting that story. And that's what I love about that kind of game. I enjoy Shadowrun. It's a lot. Like I'm still feeling like I don't know everything about my character, which is hard for me because I like to know everything about how my character works, and I can't. But I'm getting better. And something else I love. Savage Worlds. I really,
Oh.
really love Savage Worlds.
Cool. I haven't gotten to play any Savage Worlds yet, so
highly recommend. And the reason for that is I think it's such a flexible system. So for those who don't know, one of the streams that I'm on is a show called Harbingers over on Gone Rogue Entertainment, which is run by Megan Caves Callerman, who was a part of the Deadlands show over on Saving Throw Show originally. So her history in Savage Worlds is so deep. And so she plays it a lot. And she invited me because I had done that show with Saving Throw Show, but also because I was a SAGgy actor. So I'm able to join the union. I haven't because of the area I'm in. But basically, she knew I was a professional actor and was like, hey, I would love you to come audition for this and see if you can be in it. And so I've been doing that show. That show is Savage Worlds. And we just found out the actual setting of that show. And that's 3 seasons in, because thus far we were witches. We were living in a cyberpunk world. And now we're finally going to be playing in Deadlands setting of some kind. And they've all been connected the entire time. And that, as a player, I had no idea. So the fact that the game can be so drastically different and the rule set is the exact same is really, really cool.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah,
it is rough though, because you can die real easy in Savage Worlds.
Oh.
Yeah, like you basically can ace dice and you just keep rolling them. And I've seen it where, I mean, you like a small little cat on the road, if it attacks you and it aces all of its dice, you can't really do much after a certain point if it just is like a crazy amount of acing. Wow. Yeah, so it is possible to just die like that. That's not all the time though, and that's a rare occasion, but like that's what makes it savage is what I was told.
That's what makes it savage. I like that a lot. So you kind of segued perfectly for me. So you're doing Harbingers. What else are you live streaming right now, and where else can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm actually at the point in the summer where I'm taking a little break soon. So a lot of stuff is ending. I just finished Call of Cthulhu game over on 12-Sided Dice channel. I'm doing a show called Scarlet Citadel over on Band of Badgers, which is a UK-based production company. And I'm going to be playing another game with them very soon. It's a spooky game, but I can't say much more than that. And then I have another D&D game starting in the fall. And eventually Harbingers will bring back. But Harbingers is shot in a studio. So I go down to LA to shoot that.
That's awesome. What is it, like a week straight of gaming and shooting? Yeah,
it is a lot. But that's because I'm the only one not down there. And a lot of studios in LA are starting back to shooting in studio. And one of the things that I, as a person of color who's not in the LA market, advise a lot of those companies to think about is if you're really caring about diversity at your tables, you got to really look at other areas beyond just LA. Because yes, there is a very diverse population of performers and people in LA. There's a lot of people who are not able to get to those tables though, as well in other markets. So that's one of the reasons I really was excited about joining Rim Alternus, especially when, Danny invited me to come and be a part of like Clockwork, which was really, really cool. And I've really enjoyed being a part of that show. And even though I'm like on a break right now, well, my character and another character are sort of doing something else, and we're going to have another group of players that we play with as a part of that story. I'm super excited to see where that goes. But yeah, I needed a little break, so in a week, just kind of.
Sure. And like Clockwork, for any of our newer viewers, we stream over on twitch.tv/Master of Rem 5 or 6 days a week, depends on the week. And on Sunday nights, for over a year now, probably, I think it'll be 2 years this fall, we've been streaming Like Clockwork, which is steampunk fantasy D&D, and it's set in the world of Kael'thas, which is a comic book that Danny has created, and Danny GMs for this game. So the comic book and the actual play are two different stories with different characters, but happening at the same time. And there's little Easter eggs that'll be dropped in the comic book or dropped in the stream that you'll notice in both places, which is really cool. And getting to play with Randy has been phenomenal.
We play characters that don't hate each other in the other
right? I miss Locks a lot.
Yeah.
But I love it. So our group traveled together, and then our group kind of had to go separate ways while Randy's character goes to check on family and make sure they're okay. So right now we're keeping the story on with half the group, and then they'll take a break while we come back and see what Randy's character has been doing. Randy and Roland's character are together.
And new characters, because I was told there will be some other people joining that. So it'll be, a super awesome way that this story continues to grow and includes other people's. And yeah. I think that's a great way to get more people to the table too, because your new cast for like Clockwork is so great. It's super diverse. It's like I loved seeing. I was like, ooh, who are these people? What are they playing? There's a Warforge. Oh, that's cool.
The Warforge has only been in one episode, and it was the very end of the last episode. And I love it because he woke up in like this coffin box, looked up at one of our characters who's a male dragonborn, and just goes, "Mom." oh, I love it. I can't wait to see what happens there. Cool. So since you were in a couple seasons of Harbingers already, you have the old show of the indie games that you did like GM-less stuff with. You did like Clockwork. Where can we go to find all things Randy?
So it's hard because I do a lot of stuff with a lot of different channels. That's the one thing. So if you want to come see some stuff that I've done, I would go to my Twitter, because that's where I post about everything. Maybe about a month and a half ago, I was just playing in a charity stream with Abria Iyengar and Eliza Pearl over like playing Coyote and Crow. And like that kind of stuff is only ever going to be on my Twitter, because it's usually like a one-off kind of thing. And I mean, I've gotten to I did a show for Gen Con TV Gen Con Online last year with Saving Throw Show, where we played Mysterium using the Savage World system. We played in like a world based on the Mysterium board game.
Cool.
There's all of those kinds of things. So would be on my Twitter, which is Roller Raja, ROLLERRAJA. I spell it because it's easy to mess up. And people always, you're not asking, but I will share. The RAJA is actually my initials, because I have 4 names.
I knew 3 of them.
Yeah. I have a middle name, which is Anival.
I love that. By the way, when I listened to your sample for, we haven't talked about we're allowed to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I was able to book Randy for a Shadowrun audiobook. So it was written by Opti, and it's called Kings of the Streets, and Randy is going to be the narrator for it. And I love how you say your name in the intro. So like now every time I think your name, I'm like, Randy Alvarenga. It's like, if you've ever watched Jeff Dunham, he's got the whole bit about like Jeff Dunham, like the way he says it, like, so you'll remember his name. I'm like, I'm never going to forget Randy's name ever.
Good to know it works.
Amazing. Cool. And you gave me an idea too, because I feel like for some of our casts and stuff, we should, we're about to launch a new website, and maybe something that we can work toward too is saying like, where else can you find Randy? And then put a list of links to the different YouTube videos that.
So I have like a link tree. It has all of those shows. Like I said, it's on my Twitter. Those kinds of things are, it's hard, I think, when you're the kind of actor who's going around to different channels a lot, which I think if you're in the ttrpg space, a lot of people are doing that. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the cross-pollination of audiences is huge. So cool. Awesome. All right. So I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
So what would you say, because you're based in Seattle, right? And we're playing Emerald Glitch takes place in Seattle in 60 years.
Yeah.
So what are the similarities between real world Seattle and Shadowrun's Emerald City so far that you've noticed?
No, that's great. That's great. It's a great question. I think so. First, the area that I'm living in Seattle is a radioactive wasteland in Shadowrun. So my place doesn't exist. At least that's what I've been told. I haven't been there. We haven't been there in game, but Redmond is not. Redmond's really nice, but I guess in the future not so much. And then I would say there's a lot of corporate control in Seattle. Seattle's home to Amazon, thanks Twitch. And
Soy bucks.
Soy bucks, yeah. There's lots of corporations here, and they have a lot of power. I think there's a lot of dynamics of super wealthy people here and not privileged people, and them all trying to survive in the same city. And I think Shadowrun does a good job of putting some highlight on sort of the bad aspects and people going to stop that and make it better. And yeah, that's what I really think is cool.
Cool.
Only part of Redmond is apparently a wasteland, so maybe where I am is
nice. It was fun when so I lived in Chicago for 7 years, and I found out that the last place I lived, I was one exit away from the wall of the containment zone. So the nuke blast, I was just outside the radius of the nuclear wasteland that is the CZ now. So
yeah, I mean, I made my character live in not too far away from where I live now, which is Bellevue, just because I was like, I like Bellevue. I wish I could live in Bellevue. Let's put it out there. My character lives. Cool.
I don't even know where Curie lives. It was behind a dumpster in episode 1. So
but you have a place now, so that's good.
I do now. I need to figure out where it is, I guess. You're back. Well, awesome, Randy. Thank you for talking with me, and thank you for everything you all the energy that you bring to our streams, to the other streams that you do, and that love of gaming and acting just radiates from you. And I love seeing you succeed in all of these different projects that you have going on.
Thanks.
Now, everyone else, don't go away, because Randy and I will be right back to play some Shadowrun after a short break. So we'll be right back with our goodbyes. Up next is Shadowrun's 6th world, Emerald Glitch, and the Revenge of the Green Mansion. Don't forget that we have a wonderful giveaway of a Shadowrun 6th world core rulebook Seattle edition PDF from our sponsors at Catalyst Game Labs. You can enter to win by typing #RemPC in the chat right now. You can get additional entries to win by going to our donation page at remalternus.com/Nguyen or patreon.com/remalternus. All donations help to pay our cast and crew and keep producing content. And our biggest donors can have a message read at the end of the episode by the Shadowrunner of their choice. So check it out. And did you know we have more shows like Shadowrun, Emerald Glitch on our Twitch channel? We stream 5 to 6 days a week over on twitch.tv/masterofrem, including the Dresden Files RPG, Shadowrun 5th edition, a living campaign of 6th edition called Shadowrun Denver, and more. So check us out and give us a follow. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time, where we will talk with our friend Eric from Norse Foundry, and we'll be talking all things dice. So anyone who's a dice goblin won't want to miss it. We'll see you next week. Bye, RemPCs.